The franchise for the Carolina Panthers. We already covered the state of the franchise for the Miami Dolphins and the Cincinnati Bengals. If you guys haven't seen those videos, make sure that you guys go ahead and check those out. Now we're moving on to Carolina. So the Panthers have just finished their first season under first-year head coach Matt Rule with a 5-11 record. And I feel really good about what I saw out of Matt Rule this year. When you look at the Carolina Panthers, we knew most likely that the Carolina Panthers were not going to make it to the playoffs, but I wanted to see the Carolina Panthers be competitive because that's what you want to see out of a young up-and-coming team, and they were. Yes, they have a record of 5-11, but they easily could be 8-8, 7-9 because they were in a handful of one-possession games. Now, what I'm most impressed about with Matt Rule is the coaching staff that he has assembled. You bring in offensive coordinator Joe Brady from LSU. You bring in defensive coordinator Phil Snow. I have a strong feeling that neither one of those guys are going to last long on Carolina's coaching staff because they're most likely going to end up becoming head coaches in the NFL sooner rather than later. You also have some really good young players on the defense side of football, such as defensive lineman Derek Brown, who had a really good rookie season. You got Jeremy Chin, who should win Defensive Rookie of the Year this year. Now, on offense, you have a lot of weapons also. You have DJ Moore, you have Curtis Samuel, you have Robbie Anderson, you have one of the best wide receiving cores in the NFL. You're going to have Chris McCaffrey coming back fully healthy. Now, you have to improve the offensive line, and most importantly, you have to find your franchise quarterback this offseason. Rather that's in the NFL draft, most likely, or in free agency, because Teddy Bridgewater is not the long-term answer at quarterback for the Carolina Panthers. Now, there have been a good amount of Carolina Panthers fans who have been going back and forth with me on Teddy Bridgewater saying, oh, JT, man, Teddy Bridgewater's guy, you don't know what you're talking about. Listen, the Carolina Panthers signed Teddy Bridgewater to a 3-year, $63 million contract. That is chunk change compared to what the rest of the quarterbacks are making in the NFL nowadays. You have guys like Jared Goff and Jimmy Garoppolo who are making like $129 million. So Teddy Bridgewater signing a $63 million contract. That's pretty much pennies compared to what the majority of quarterbacks are making nowadays in the NFL. So you look at Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater is a backup to a fringe starter quarterback, which means that he's a quarterback that you just allow to start until you find your franchise guy. Now, the Carolina Panthers currently have the 8th overall pick in the upcoming NFL draft. So they're not really in a position to get a guy like a Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields. Maybe you get Zach Wilson depending on how the draft goes, even though I highly doubt it. Maybe you can get Trey Lance, who seems like the more likely option there. He should be available at 8. But I could see the Carolina Panthers trading up. But they do have to find their franchise quarterback of the future in this year's draft. Now, I was really high on the P.J. Walker train when it came to P.J. Walker being a franchise quarterback for Carolina. And I love P.J. Walker a lot. But after what I saw when he came in, once Teddy Bridgewater got benched against the New Orleans Saints week 17, I don't really have that much confidence in P.J. Walker being a franchise quarterback. I feel like he can be the franchise backup for Carolina, but as the long-term solution at quarterback, as the franchise, just don't really have that much confidence in P.J. Walker anymore. But I do feel like he could be a good backup for the team moving forward. But when you look at Carolina is most definitely heading in the right direction. As a matter of fact, Carolina is leading towards taking over the NFC South, and that may sound a little bit bogus to say, but when you look at the state of the NFC South right now, New Orleans is preparing for life after Drew Brees because he's expected to retire after the season. Tampa Bay and Tom Brady doesn't have that many years left in the tank. He can't play football forever. He may have at least 1 or 2 more years left. Then on top of that, you also have the Atlanta Falcons, who look like they're about to enter rebuild mode, bringing in a new general manager, bringing in a new coaching staff, so they could opt to rebuild. So you don't really know what is going to happen with a lot of franchises in the NFC South division, which opens the door for Carolina to take over this division. And you look at the coaching staff that they have assembled. They have one of the more underrated coaching staffs in the NFL. I like what I've seen out of Matt Rule. Year one for Carolina was all about establishing the culture, getting players to buy in to what you're trying to implement. And I believe that the Carolina Panthers with Matt Rule, he has got these young players to buy in to what he's trying to implement and the way that he's trying to run this franchise. Because if players didn't buy in, I don't think the Carolina Panthers would have been in so many one-possession games if you didn't have players believe in what you're trying to implement into the franchise. Now, my biggest question is going to be, who is going to be the general manager? As a matter of fact, I didn't even know that the Carolina Panthers didn't have a general manager until a couple of weeks ago. So, for you Carolina Panthers fans who are watching this video, can somebody tell me down in the comment section down below who is in charge of making the personnel decisions for the Carolina Panthers with them not having a general manager? Like, was Matt Rule making the decisions, or who was it? Was it somebody in the front office? Let me know down in the comment section down below who is making the personnel decisions down in the comment section down below, because I don't really know. So you look at Carolina, you're going to be bringing in a new general manager. That's going to be interesting to see how the new GM and Matt Rule get along. Also, I want to see what is Carolina going to do in free agency, because Carolina wasn't really all that active in free agency last year. And the reason for that is because the best way to build a team is by first you bring in your new head coach and you allow him to establish the culture in the locker room. Once you have the culture in the locker room established, then you go in free agency and you can bring in marquee players in free agency, because they need all the help that they can get when it comes to offensive line position, because I'm not really all that sold when it comes to the upcoming offensive lineman class in that upcoming NFL draft. Now, you also need some help at pass rusher as well. Aside from Brian Burns, you don't really have another consistent pass rusher. Yeah, you got Derek Brown there as well, but you could add another piece there to improve the pass rush, which the pass rush was a big reason why Carolina's defense wasn't as good as what it could be. But overall, this Panthers franchise is heading into the right direction. And like I was talking about earlier, the Carolina Panthers are in prime position to take over the NFC South. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw the Carolina Panthers make it to the playoffs next year and compete for this division, because Drew Brees is going to be retired. He's not going to be coming back. So the Saints don't have their answer long-term at the quarterback position. You have Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston. I don't really think Taysom Hill is built to be the long-term successor for Drew Brees once he retires. Then you got Jameis Winston. They started Taysom Hill over Jameis Winston for a reason. Now, there are reports out there that are saying that the Saints do believe in Jameis Winston being their long-term answer, but we don't really know about that. Now, for Carolina, like I said, the offensive line has to be addressed, and the quarterback position has to be addressed. What is going to be the ideal situation at quarterback for Carolina? Because if you can't trade up and get a guy like Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, or Trey Lance, then you may have to stick with Teddy Bridgewater for one more season until the 2022 NFL draft comes around, which is also pretty loaded with quarterbacks like Sam Howard. You look at the guy at USC, that's a pretty loaded quarterback class entering 2022. So for Carolina, if you can't find a quarterback in this year's NFL draft, you may have to stick with Teddy Bridgewater for one more year, which Teddy Bridgewater's ceiling has already been reached. Like, there are a couple of Panthers fans that are like, man, JT, Teddy Bridgewater has a little bit more upside, a little bit more potential. Not really. I think Teddy Bridgewater has pretty much been capped. He's pretty much a fringe starter, good backup option. I think Teddy Bridgewater is a better fit on a veteran team like the New Orleans Saints, or a team that's competing for a playoffs, not a team that is young, that is trying to build something. So for Teddy Bridgewater, I don't think he's going to last long in Carolina. I was pretty high on PJ Walker a couple of weeks ago, but I still don't know how much faith I have in PJ Walker as being a franchise quarterback. I think he could be a good backup, but from what I saw in his brief period of time playing against the New Orleans Saints, not really all that encouraged as PJ Walker being the guy to lead the Panthers franchise. So off the line, finding your franchise quarterback of the future are the two main concerns that Carolina has to have going into this offseason, attacking the free agency and attacking in the NFL draft. Now, defensively, yes, cornerback also has to be addressed as well, because your cornerback position is a mess. Aside from Dante Jackson, not really a lot of good options there. You have Jeremy Chin at safety, so you're pretty set there. So the Carolina Panthers still have a lot of holes that they have to fill this offseason. But overall, if you are a Panthers fan, you should be pretty encouraged about what you've seen out of this team under Matt Rule in his first season, with how competitive that they were. They could easily be 8-8, 7-9 as of right now. Hell, they could be in the playoffs right now. So for Carolina, you're moving in the right direction. All